my name is Bailey Hilton, and my speech is about violent video games. So video games are just like any other game out there, such as football, track, and even board games. They all involve strategy, coordination, and most importantly, mind power. So when you think about it, what is the real difference between video games and all the other types of games? The main difference is violence. In an article written by Mary Beth Hicks, it said a 2011 study showed that 71% of video games contained mild violence and 25% contained intense violence with blood and gore. And if you think about it, that was approximately 3 years ago. So think about how much our time has evolved and how lenient people have gotten with what they allow in video games. So just think about how much violence is in our life today. Another thing to think about is school shootings. How would you feel as a parent if your child was the one to bring a gun to school? I'm sure you would feel disappointed, frightened, horrified, and overall probably like a failure as a parent. And typically, a child's actions reflect on how a parent is portraying their values. So what I'm going to be covering is looking into games before you purchase them and how violent games show aggression in different types of personalities and how to deal with that aggression. So to look beyond ratings, you can look at the back of a video game and it may have a decent rating, but as I said before, video games along with movies and anything in social media has gotten so lenient with their ratings. So you never really know until you look deep into the content of the video game. Violence and sex and language have been so overly exposed to teenagers, and so when someone little is growing up with all that around them, they're not going to know any different, and they're going to think that that's okay. So I cannot stress enough to look into the content of the video game rather than just the rating. And in a pro and con argument article that I read online, it said that video games, when you are acting violently in video games, it's a way to achieve a goal. It rewards you rather than punishing you. So playing this video game, you're being rewarded for all these violent actions you're making rather than being punished. So let's relate that to being bullied. So what if a child was being beat down, thrown down, physically and emotionally at school? And so he or she goes home and plays video games online to relieve this aggression. And that's great. It's a great way to relieve it. But what if you say the wrong thing to him at the wrong time? He may or may not give that aggression out on you. And it's been proven that there are several school shootings that have been related and linked to violent video games. And so how can you really prevent this from happening? As I said before, and I will say again, I cannot stress enough how much you need to look into the content of the video game. The rating doesn't show you what's actually in it. You need to get online and look at the content and the reviews to see what you're exposing your child to. And if that video game is something you're okay with exposing to your child, then purchase it or let your child purchase it, but you need to manage the time that they are allowed to be exposed to it. Because we all know any child could sit on the couch and watch movies or play video games for 8 hours straight without even blinking. So you need to manage the time that they are actually being exposed to this. And in an article written by Joey Ferguson, he kind of changes it up a little, so we look at the perspective of how the video games look at it, the video game companies look at it. And they look at it as they just want to make profit off of all the money they spent to make this video game. So it's not their job to be a parent, so you have to take that role on as your own self to monitor what your child is doing. So just because your child may play violent video games does not mean they're going to bring a gun to school. But I would strongly advise to monitor what your child is doing and how much time they are spending doing this. And you can never trust that a rating is appropriate. The bottom line is, in my opinion, that parents need to be a parent. Being a parent is a full-time job, and you have to be able to monitor what your child is doing. You can never rely on society to raise your child. Thank you.